Kenyatta A.C. Hinkle and Lava Thomas, presented in conjunction with the exhibition, The Black Index. A reminder that the Black Index exhibition is on view at the Arts Center through August 14th. I hope you will all have a chance to see the show. I would first like to thank our sponsors for the exhibition listed here. We're very appreciative. We also know that we have some lenders to the exhibition in the audience. We also want to thank the lenders who made this exhibition possible. I would also like to thank the Palo Alto Art Center Foundation members and donors who have supported our work. For those of you who are not members, I encourage you to join and support our work at pacf.org. That is pacf.org. I also want to just let you briefly know about a couple upcoming programs. Karen, if you just want to advance the slides. Bridget Cooks, who I'll introduce in just a moment, the esteemed curator of the Black Index exhibition, is doing a series focused on Black American art history. These are coming up actually next Friday, July 9th and August 13th. Encourage you to sign up for those. And we are also doing, in conjunction with Hunter College, the next slide, please, Karen, a publication launch for the book in conjunction with the Black Index. So that's coming up on June 18th. Encourage you to sign up for that as well. These are free virtual events. So we have a Zoom room with some amazing people here tonight. First, I would like to introduce Bridget Cooks, the curator of the Black Index, joining us from Irvine. Bridget R. Cooks is a scholar, writer, curator, and professor who holds a joint appointment in the Department of African American Studies and the Department of Art History at UC Irvine. Thank you, Bridget, for being here. Kenyatta A.C. Hinkle is an interdisciplinary visual artist, writer, and performer. Her practice fluctuates between collaborations and participatory projects with alternative gallery spaces within various communities to projects that are intimate and based upon her private experiences and relationship to historic events and contexts. A term that has become a mantra for her practice is the historical present, as she examines the residue of history and how it affects our contemporary world perspective. Her artwork and experimental writing has been exhibited and performed at the Studio Museum in Harlem, Project Row Houses, the Hammer Museum, the Museum of Art at the University of New Hampshire, SF MoMA, the Baltic Center for Contemporary Art in Newcastle upon Tyne in the UK, and Paramo Galleria in Guadalajara, Mexico. She is the author of Gentrifications, Convergent Truths and Realities, 2018, published by Sming Sming Books and Occidental College, and Sir, 2019, published by Litmus Press. Lava Thomas tackles issues of race, gender, and representation and memorialization through a multidisciplinary practice that spans drawing, painting, photography, sculpture, site-specific installations. Drawing from her family's Southern roots, current and historical socio-political events, intersectional feminism, and African-American protests and devotional traditions, Thomas' practice centers ideas that amplify visibility, healing, and empowerment in the face of erasure, trauma, and oppression. She was born in Los Angeles and studied at UCLA's School of Art Practice and received a BFA from California College of the Arts. Her work is included in the National Portrait Gallery's triennial exhibition, American Portraiture Today. Her work has been exhibited in various institutions, including the Smithsonian, the International Print Center, MOAD in San Francisco, the Contemporary Jewish Museum in San Francisco, and the California African American Museum in Los Angeles. Welcome, Bridget, Kenyatta, and Lava, and thank you for being with us tonight.
Thank you. Thanks, Karen. Thanks to everyone who's here. I hope you're looking forward to the weekend. I hope you're looking forward to summer. Congratulations on making it through almost half of 2021. I don't know how this happened, but here we are. It's almost summer solstice. I want to echo my thanks for to all of the lenders and the sponsors who helped make the Black Index exhibition and its programs a reality. None of this happens without your support. It really, really doesn't. So sincere thanks. And it's just my absolute pleasure to have a conversation with these two great artists. I always refer to both of them Lava and Kenyatta as the two Bay Area powerhouses in the show, but you're really international phenomena. And I have been working with them consistently ever since I found out about them. So I'm so glad to be in communion with you. So to everyone, the format of this program is that we're going to enjoy presentations by Lava and then Kenyatta, and then we're going to have a conversation. And the time is going to go by very quickly. We're going to end right at 6. And we're going to learn about their current projects and future projects, and be able to have more things to look forward to, which we really need right now in 2021. So Lava, I'm going to go ahead and start your slides. And then we can go ahead and get started. Here we go. All right, please go ahead, Lava.
Thanks, Bridget. Thanks for inviting me to be a part of a Black Index. And thank you, Karen, staff, and supporters of the Palo Alto Arts Center for bringing the Black Index to Northern California. Next. 3 portraits from my project, Mugshot Portraits, Women of the Montgomery Bus Boycott, are included in the Black Index exhibition. The project eliminates the under-acknowledged legacy of Black women's activism through a series of commemorative portraits based on mugshots of women who were arrested during the Montgomery bus boycott of 1955 and 56, the pivotal event that launched Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s leadership of the civil rights movement. I chose this period of American history for its relevance to the present. The resurgence of white supremacy, racial hostility, and lethal violence, and the methodical erosion of hard-won civil rights laws and protections. I began this body of work in 2017, shortly after Trump was elected. Next. The popular narrative of the Montgomery bus boycott is well known. Rosa Parks' arrest for refusing to give up her seat to a white passenger on a segregated Montgomery bus. The ensuing year-long boycott led by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and the NAACP lawsuit, which resulted in the Supreme Court ruling that deemed segregation on Montgomery buses unconstitutional. Next. That narrative centers men and largely omits the activism and leadership of the Black women who initiated and organized the boycott. Next. This project aims to expand that narrative by centering Black women's activism and labor. I'm looking at this period through firsthand accounts of the Black women who organized and participated in the boycott, as well as texts on gender and the civil rights movement, Black feminism, and histories of women's activism. Next. We know that Rosa Parks was not simply a seamstress, too tired to give up her seat to a white passenger. Parks was a longtime civil rights activist, secretary and investigator for the Montgomery chapter of the NAACP. She had been investigating cases of racial and sexual terrorism against Black women for over a decade. Next. Joanne Robinson initiated the boycott. An English professor at Alabama State College and president of the Women's Political Council, Robinson and the WPC planned and organized a one-day boycott, distributing over 50,000 handbills to local Black churches, schools, beauty shops, and barbershops, urging Black Montgomery residents not to ride the bus. Next. Ministers of Montgomery's Black churches embraced the action, extending the boycott and electing Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. as president of the newly formed Montgomery Improvement Association. But Black women were the chief strategists, fundraisers, carpool organizers, and drivers, along with the thousands of domestic workers who refused to ride the bus, financially crippling the bus company and businesses in downtown Montgomery, who reportedly lost millions of dollars in revenue. Next. The backlash was swift, with KKK bombings and state-sanctioned intimidation and violence. 2 months into the boycott, an Alabama grand jury handed down over 80 indictments to boycott leaders for breaking Alabama's anti-boycott laws. When boycott leaders learned that mass arrests were imminent, they turned themselves in, riding together in groups to support one another rather than suffer the humiliation of being arrested in their homes or places of employment. Next. They seized the moment of surrender and made it their own, choosing when and how they would be photographed as part of the criminal record. Dressing well was an act of self-regard, a way to maintain what historian Danielle McGuire calls bodily integrity. Next. Acting within the repressive limits of the mugshot, a photograph designed to remove traces of the sitter's humanity, the women took control of their representation with their self-possession, their style, even their refusal to hang the booking numbers around their necks. They actively contributed to the making of their image. Next. Transforming codes of criminality into representations of resistance, the portraits honor the women's service and sacrifice. Next. And they reveal the women's interior lives in that moment with a range of emotions, averted eyes, which convey resignation, perhaps. Next. Or a side eye and smirk that conveys a quiet defiance. Next. With the exception of Parks, Robinson, and a few others, we know little more than the names of many of these women. Next. I chose to draw the portraits instead of creating paintings because the act of drawing is accessible. We have all used a pencil and paper and have engaged in some form of mark making. Next. The materiality of the portraits is a metaphor for the fragility of this history, the ease with which it can be erased if it isn't preserved. As drawings, the portraits have to be protected and treated with care, framed and kept out of direct sunlight to prevent yellowing and fading. Next. Conceptually, the notion of labor is embedded in each drawing with the accumulation of thousands of lines and strokes. The drawings are built in layers in a process that's laborious and time-consuming. The line is labor. Next. The portraits are drawn slightly larger than life size and hung at eye level so that the viewer has an intimate one-to-one engagement with them. This series represents only a fraction of the thousands of Black women who were the backbone and also at the forefront of the movement. Next. In May of 2020, Dr. Angela Davis drew a direct line from the Montgomery bus boycott women's activism to the labor of current Black women activists. And as we saw in the last presidential election, with the work of Stacey Abrams, Helen Butler, Felicia Davis, and many others whose voter mobilization efforts flipped Georgia in both the presidential and Senate races, Black women's political agency continues to be a powerful catalyst for change. The January 6th siege of the US Capitol and Republicans' current voter suppression efforts to return this country to Jim Crow 2.0 reminds us that a sustained, organized, and disciplined response is ever urgent and necessary. Next. 4 portraits from my ongoing project, Looking Back and Seeing Now, are currently on view in conjunction with the Black Index in the Palo Alto Art Center's Glass Gallery. The images that I'm going to show are from 2015 when the project was first exhibited. The current iteration of this project is a little different. Next. Looking Back and Seeing Now connects the material and the spiritual, invoking the prayers, strength, and resilience of my maternal ancestors, Black women from the South. I was working on this exhibition when the Charleston massacre occurred, and the grief and rage, both personal and collective, was overwhelming. I responded to the murders by transforming the gallery into a contemplative space for refuge and respite. Next. The installation includes portraits of my ancestors from the early 1900s, drawn from photographs that I found in my grandmother's photo album. The stories told to me by my grandmother of KKK cross burnings in her hometown left me to imagine what these women must have witnessed and endured. I activated the portrait's gaze by painting the eyes in color as a means to bring them into the present. Next. The portraits are 6 feet square. Next. Next. The installation created a space where the past and present met. Theatrical lights and mirrored tambourines cast moving reflections and shadows onto the gallery walls, activating the space into an immersive experience in which the viewer became a part. Viewers saw themselves reflected in the piece, and the piece in turn seemed to watch them back. Next. Next. I've been granted the commission to erect a monument to honor Dr. Maya Angelou by the city of San Francisco, which will stand in front of the San Francisco Library. In 2018, San Francisco passed legislation to increase the representation of women in the public realm to 30% through the erection of monuments, sculptures, renaming of city streets and buildings. As part of that endeavor, San Francisco named Dr. Angelou to be honored with the first monument. A discussion of the politics around this monument, for which I was originally selected, then subsequently rejected by city officials, and finally granted, would take more time than we currently have. You can Google Maya Angelou Monument for more background. The images that follow will share some of the ideas that shaped my design thinking. Next. Monument to a Phenomenal Woman will introduce a new icon to the city of San Francisco with a representation of Dr. Angelou that doesn't already exist in the public's consciousness. A monument whose formal and conceptual choices are driven by Dr. Angelou's own words, how she defined herself, her values, and the overarching philosophy of her life and work. Next. The process began with research, re-immersing myself in Dr. Angelou's works, interviews, and performances, and reading works by other Black women writers and scholars to provide a broader context in which to think about her life and work. Next. I also considered Dr. Angelou's sense of aesthetics by looking at her eclectic art collection, where Elizabeth Catlett was prominently featured. I've long admired Catlett's ability to marry technical virtuosity with social content, and her portrayals of Black women that convey dignity, compassion, determination, and care. Next. The monument's title is from Dr. Angelou's poem, Phenomenal Woman, a powerful declaration of self, proclaiming herself as phenomenal in a society that persistently attempts to dehumanize Black and brown people required, and requires still, unassailable courage. Next. The monument takes the form of a book fabricated in bronze and stands at a total height of 9 feet. The monument's book form serves as a symbolic repository of her life and works, and its scale emphasizes the vital importance of the library in reading throughout the course of Dr. Angelou's life. From the young girl who found refuge in books and libraries to overcome childhood trauma and mutism, to the fledgling young writer of the Harlem Writers Guild, and on to become one of the most celebrated authors of our time. The monument's clean lines, devoid of embellishment, reflect her view that the epitome of sophistication is utter simplicity. Next. The quote on the back of the monument further reinforces the importance of the library and illustrates how reading and information cultivate empathy and understanding, necessary qualities to counter ignorance and intolerance. The human drama that unfolds in literature helps us to see our common humanity with greater clarity. Dr. Angelou's insistence of our shared humanity, that we are more alike than unalike, is an underlying philosophy of her life and works. I write about the Black experience, she says, but I am always talking about the human condition. Next. Her portrait is based on stills from the author's 1973 interview with Bill Moyers. By then, Dr. Angelou had achieved international recognition as an author, poet, film director, activist, and humanitarian. A true cosmopolitan, she'd lived in several countries, traveled extensively, and performed on stages around the world. When Bill Moyers asked what price she paid for her freedom, the freedom to work, travel, and live so expansively, she answered, "The price is high. The reward is great. At some point, you realize that you are only free when you belong no place. You belong to every place." When asked if she belonged to anyone, she answered, "I belong to myself." Next. Wearing a short afro and hoop earrings, Dr. Angelou epitomizes the Black is beautiful aesthetic. This is a generative portrait that captures her human interiority and complexity with a nuanced expression that can be interpreted differently by each person that encounters it. The portrait conveys her fierceness, her softness, her strength, and her vulnerability. It not only transcends the decade from which it's based, it projects a timeless presence into the future. Next. And these studies show how the drawn portrait would be translated to bronze. Next. Bronze has long been the material choice for commemorative monuments for its association with conquest, grandeur, and permanence. My choice for bronze, however, is inspired by the Benin bronzes of West Africa, created by the Edo people, whose indigenous metallurgy technologies date back to the 13th century, before the arrival of Europeans. I was also inspired by Elizabeth Catlett's memorial to Ralph Ellison, Invisible Man, a bronze monolith that stands in Harlem. Monument to a Phenomenal Woman embraces the rectangularity of these works and is grounded in an ethos of inclusion and Black aesthetics, a departure from the neoclassical European figurative tradition of statuary on which Confederate and colonial monuments are based. Next. This rendering shows how the monument will look in front of the library. I'm now in the very beginning stages of bringing the monument to life. Next. So stay tuned. Thank you.
Thank you, Lava. Yeah, so much to talk about. So let's hold this, and people who maybe have some questions, maybe jot them down, and if we have time at the end, we'll ask you to put them in the chat. So I'm going to stop sharing here. And then I'm going to ask Kenyatta to present, and then we will have a conversation.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. It is a sheer honor to be in the Black Index and to be in yet another project curated by Bridget. And I just equally give so much thanks to Karen and the Palo Alto Center and Hunter College and just all the different places and organizations and people that have been responsible for bringing this show together. Okay, so I'll get into my presentation. So I was thinking that we could start with a breathing meditation. That stems from my work, the Evanescence, The Untouchables, that is featured in the Black Index. So let me see. Is it advancing? Uh-oh. Okay.
Now it is.
The next slide? Okay. Okay. Let me see. I can't minimize my view thing. Why am I having text stuff right here? I knew I was going to do this.
I don't know, but we can see this. We can see the image, the slide that you're showing.
I can't see it. I can't make you all tiny so I can see what's on the screen.
Let's see. Are there, do you want to try different views?
I think this is what I need to do.
Okay.
I'm so sorry, you all.
It's okay. And maybe you can minimize the whole Zoom screen if that helps somehow. I don't know.
It's not letting me do that either. Okay. So, Bridget, could you please read the text on the screen?
Yes, I can. I'd be happy to.
Thank you.
To evanesce means to disappear or to vanish into thin air. What you're about to experience stems from artworks that stand as a witnessing of the erasure of Black women historically and presently.
Oh my gosh, it's not advancing now.
You know, I can try to do it on my screen.
Okay.
Let's see if I can.
figured it out. I figured it out.
You did, okay.
Sorry. I gotta press these little things up here.
We have time, you're fine.
So sorry, Mercury's in retrograde. Okay.
Oh, no.
This is an opportunity for you to take a moment of silence in order to acknowledge the theft of our collective breath via various forms of police brutality and trauma within our ecological systems. Focus on your breath.
Kenyatta, you know, we can't see the images anymore. Is that okay?
No, that's not okay.
Okay.
Horrible. Okay. So let me do this.
I also have it pulled up on my screen if you want me to share my screen.
Yes, will it do the PowerPoint?
Yeah, let's try it.
I'm so sorry, y'all.
You know, Kenyatta, we're all in this together with the Zoom. I think everybody's very understanding. So can everyone see my screen now?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, let me do this.
Okay. Okay. This is okay.
Oh,
It's okay. Thank you, Colony. Okay, I want everybody to focus on their breath, and I'm going to be playing a crystal bowl that is attuned to your heart chakra, okay? While we view these images. Everybody take a deep breath in and let it out. Okay, Bridget, you can do it. Press up. Okay. Whoa, what's happening? Oh, wow. Whoa. It's not okay. It's not supposed to be.
should we go with it, Kenyatta, or do you
Yeah,
want me
we're
to?
gonna go with it.
Okay,
That's
let's
the
go.
ghost. That's the digital ghost. Okay. That was super interesting. I have never ever seen that breathing meditation before. I'm going to start by saying I'm a ghost lady and I invite all of these various presences to share space with us during this time. Wow. So the bowl that I was playing, it corresponds to the F note, which is our heart chakra. So I wanted to play this bowl and to do this kind of heart opening exercise as we contemplate this body of work, the Evanescence. To date, I've probably channeled about maybe 500 of these drawings and works, and the archive continues to grow and grow and grow. The Evanescence started in 2016. Can you go to the next slide, Bridget? And it started when I returned back from my Fulbright in Lagos, Nigeria, and I discovered that there was a man who's known as the Grim Sleeper, and he's believed to have evanesced about 100 Black women from South Central. And I remember through working with the archive as a muse throughout all of my bodies of work, I had also went to study at the Getty, and there was an archive of 1,000 postcards of West African women whose bodies were taken out of context. And when the Grim Sleeper, when he was arrested and sent to trial, the LAPD found about 1,000 photographs that he had taken over the years of women. And I said, how is it that the Getty and this man have the same amount of images of Black women who have been historically and presently erased? And it was bone chilling for me. And so this body of work was the first time that I ever started working with contemporary photographs or stories. Normally my specialty is working with colonial postcard imagery that's supposed to represent loot and, you know, being able to conquer these kind of foreign lands in the name of the colony and all of these different various acts of erasure. So what we're looking at is an image that was put on a billboard in South Central. And essentially the LAPD were looking for people within the Grim Sleepers archives that weren't able to be identified. But for them to be placed on this billboard was essentially criminalizing them, as well as if they had did something wrong. And so what I wanted to do is I wanted to start working with this archive, and it really haunted me and it kept me up all night. And I think it's so interesting that in me trying to do this breathing meditation with you all, there was this glitch and this kind of disintegration of these images that were coming through. You can go to the next slide, Bridget. And so I kept asking myself, what would it look like to emerge from erasure? Because I was so angry about the erasure. I was so angry about, there was this Black coalition against serial killers who went door to door knocking in South Central saying, hey, there's a serial killer in our neighborhood. Women are disappearing. We need your help. We need your help. And they even went to the LAPD, and the LAPD said, well, why do you care? These women are just whores. And so to think of the aunts, you know, sisters, mothers, cousins, just everyday people who were trying to survive in this community, it was just so haunting to me. So I also discovered that in 2014, the Black and Missing Foundation had reported that there were 64,000 missing Black women in America. And this was in 2014. So we can only imagine how much the numbers have increased. And so I started thinking about this idea of this unportrait. Can you go to the next slide? So I started going into familial archives that the families had because I didn't want to work from this serial killer's archives because those images were what people would consider to be like trophies, and it was so just predatory. And I was just like, there's something so not right about these images that doesn't sit well with my spirit. And so initially I was thinking about working with these images that were taken by family members. But then I started realizing, well, that would be an entirely different project because out of 100, out of 64,000, how could I go to every single home, find out what every single woman ate, and to be able to really do a portrait of them? And so I decided that what I would have to create would be unportraits. They're not portraits of women, they are portraits inspired by. You can go to the next slide. Retrieval is a major part of my practice. So I do a lot of channeling. And for me to be able to retrieve these unportraits that represent Black women who have disappeared presently and all the way historically down the line, we're talking about middle passages, all of these different unfathomable erasures, I started going into nature and collecting branches and sea moss, well, Spanish moss when I did a residency in Florida. And I was teaching an experimental drawing course at Cal Arts, and I had my students go out and forage to make their own brushes and tools. And they were like, have you ever done this before? And I was like, no, don't tell anybody. We're just going to experiment. And so I love what they were doing so much that when I did the residency, I decided that it was time for me to make my own brushes. So I really am using these tools to kind of summon these presences up to create this massive archive of unportraits. Can you go to the next slide? Okay, so these have sounds to them. I'm not sure if you can even see to click on them, but, and I know we're gonna be a little short on time, but what also inspired me to not only, you know, make these drawings or channel these drawings, my good friend Jen Everett, she sent me these tracks of Zora Neale Hurston singing, and I had never heard her sing before. And so there's this song called Halifax, and she says she goes into the crowd to learn the song. And then when she could sing it back to them, that's how they knew that she was ready to go and sing the song for others. You all, I'm a ghost lady. I feel like when I'm making this work, I'm going into the crowd of all of these presences and trying to find how these unportraits want to be articulated so that I can then sing their story or channel their story to share it with other people. Okay, so maybe Google Halifax, go listen to it. Is it playing?
On the East Coast. I don't remember. I was in a big crowd, and I learned it in the evening during the crowd, and I just don't have to exactly remember who did teach it to me, but I learned it from the crowd mostly back in one. You may leave and go to Halifax, but my slow drag will bring you back. Well, you may go, but this will bring you back. I've been in the country, would I move to town? I'm a total shaker, from my head on down. Well, you may go, but this will bring you back. Some folks call me a total shaker. It's a doggone lie. I'm a backbone breaker. Well, you may go, but this will bring you back. Oh, you like my peaches, but you don't like me. Don't you like my peaches? Don't you shake my tree? Oh, well, you may go, but this will bring you back. A hoodoo wagon, my heels all popping and my toenails cracking. Well, you may go, but this will bring you back.
Woo!
All right.
Feels every time I hear it. Okay, you can go to the next slide.
Okay.
So there's so much in that song. I could do a whole dissertation on this song. You like my features, but you don't like me.
That's right.
Woo! I mean, you just literally get chills. So I would be listening to all of these soundtracks while I would also, conjuring up these presences and these unportraits. Yes, I see a Shara's like, can you send us that link? Yes, I will try to find the link for it and put it in the chat. It's really, really, really bone chilling and amazing. So in addition to channeling these presences, I also started creating these performances called the Evanescence Embodied Disappearance. And so this is when I did a residency at the Hammer Museum. And I was really trying to find this vocabulary for how do I take up all of these different presences. I love the way that Lava was talking about materiality in her practice. And in a similar way that she uses like ubiquitous materials of graphite, lead, just drawing paper, just very essential things that we have a relationship with. I use boots and wigs and hats and just everyday clothing and items that I kind of collect. And I like to wear them and bring them all into the space and then go in and out of these soundtracks of Zora Neale Hurston singing and all of these different blues women to really conjure up these unportraits. You can go to the next slide. And you can keep cycling through these. They're pretty quick. There's something going on in which I like to shove all of the stuff underneath my dress and then rebirth it out. I don't know why, but that's what I need to do in these spaces. And I'm usually walking in a lot of concentric circles. I'm stomping. I created this song called Dear White Supremacy, I'm Breaking Up With You. And this is one where my son, Johari, actually did this performance with me. This was not planned, y'all, but he was like, can I perform with you? And I was like, oh my gosh, you got 10 minutes, put your stuff on. So, but this one was so intense because I was heavily mourning Corinne Gaines and what happened to her and her son, Cody, in which the Baltimore police department literally ended her life in front of her child, who was around the same age that my son was during the time. And so it was so interesting how Johari entered into this performance to be a part of this wake work that I've been doing. You can go to the next slide. And so for this one, I wanted to just wear all of these layers of clothes and we like took them off in this like really elaborate dance. And this was his first time ever performing with me. And it was, it was very interesting. It was very interesting and really powerful for him to be a part of that. Next. And this image, my friend Tyler Matthew Oyer, he actually took these photos and it was so arresting to me because in a lot of these performances, I exhaust myself because I'm really trying to talk about, what does it mean to go in and out of these modes of being, to survive these histories, legacies, and all of these things. But once again, I just cannot shake Corinne and Cody, and what that child even today must still be dealing with. Okay, next slide. And this is also, I performed it at Paramount Gallery in Guadalajara. And it was interesting because I was really thinking about the high infant mortality rates amongst Black women and their babies, their children, and Black maternal death as well. But when I also flew into Mexico, I was thinking about the disappeared, and all of these students who are just disappearing just constantly every day, and how it's just such a urgent form of embodying erasure and thinking about all of these disappearing people. And so it was a really powerful combination to kind of talk about birthing and, losing your children. Next slide. And you can keep going through this one. So within this piece, I used a lot of my breath and I started from the ground floor and I just started carrying this heavy load of wigs, hats, shoes. Almost always, I like to create these concentric circles of chalk to kind of talk about ancestors and Sankofa, going back and going forwards and doing a lot of marching and kind of stomping to kind of conjure up these presences. and how do you hold all of these different elements inside of yourself and outside of yourself. And this is a performance that is really important to be witnessed to, because it really is shifting the audience from spectator to witness. Okay, continue. Yeah. Okay, so now I'm just gonna briefly talk about works in progress that I am creating. So these are some like nitty gritty studio shots of me working on a commission for the San Francisco Arts Commission and the San Francisco Public Utilities. 80% of waste is, what do you call it? Digested or cleaned in Bayview Hunters Point. And in this neighborhood, this is where all the Black people in San Francisco live. Majority of them, 6% of San Francisco's population is Black. And this just so happens to be where all the Black people have lived through the Great Migration. And so due to the waste water treatment plant being in this neighborhood, a lot of people develop cancers, a whole lot of deaths. And now with gentrification being so rampant, there's so much erasure and displacement of African-American families in this neighborhood. And so what I'm doing is I'm creating this large mural that's going to be on these aluminum panels that will be in the Alex Picture community multi-purpose room that is going to be in this new building that they have to build. I'm doing a very quick synopsis because this is a project that's very loaded and has a lot of different elements, but this is kind of behind the scenes what I do and how I kind of work with archives as muse, and I kind of let them talk to me and I cut them out and I move them around a lot in my studio. Okay, next. And these are kind of some elements on the cutting board. I didn't want to show y'all too much because I got to show it to the community in like 2 weeks and y'all can't get all of that stuff before then. Okay, lastly, this is a project that I have coming up that Bridget is curating with IMCA. And I will be working with archives, photographic archives from Colonel Allensworth, who started this entirely Black founded, funded city in California. And it's a historical site, and they created their own Black school district. I mean, it's just such a powerful testament and investigation into Black utopia. And then I thought it was even more interesting in terms of me working with this project because Colonel Allensworth was actually enslaved in Louisville, Kentucky, where I was born and raised. And then he came out west to create this whole town. And so I will be working in this show called Sanctuary. No, Dissolve. But the title of this work is Sanctuary because I've been thinking about Black utopias and what does it mean to create a space within such a volatile history and set of contexts. How can we thrive? And also something happened to the water supply that was poisoned. And so this work is also about water. Okay. Oh yeah, and then I'm kind of thinking about my work with colonial archives and also thinking about the architectures and structures that are in Allensworth. Yeah. Okay. Oh my God. Okay, time. Cut it, Bridget. Cut it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh my God.
The ghost is working for us. You know, don't get flustered. And I think we're all just energized by the energy that both of you are so generous with. You know, you give so much to us through your work and then through the time that we have with you as well. So I just want to thank you for that. And, you know, again, thank you both for being in the exhibition. it's my joy to be able to just help more people see and appreciate the work that you both are doing. That gives me so much joy. I mean, I feel it's a job, but it's so much pleasure and joy in it that I feel very fortunate. So I know we only have a few minutes left. People are loving it in the chat. Put your love in the chat, everybody, because we can't hear you. And usually you hear thunderous applause, after these things. So we're working with the technology we have. So thanks, everybody. I wanted to thank both of you also for including images that show you working in your studio. It did something to me when I saw, Lava just drawing, like so close up, so intimate, seeing, the body and how much you give, your own. I mean, I can imagine a whole series of photographs or artworks of just your bodies as you're working and what that labor looks like, because both of you are talking about the line is labor, and that's the title of a show right there. The line is labor, right? And the way that we think about the line in the work, but also the line that we create as your audience, people who are waiting online, people who are performing. Kenyatta's performance, the line of your body, the line of the bodies of the women that you create. I also think about the line in ancestry, right? My line of people, your line of people, thinking about intersections. I just, I'm not, and if curators, I know Ashara is here. You want to take this idea, do the line is labor, I'm going to be there. It's yours. Take it, because, there's room for everybody to contribute and there's so much work to do. I wanted to just plug for everybody the shows that you both have coming up. And I know you're in multiple shows, but the ones that I'm involved with directly, Lava Thomas Homecoming is opening at the Montgomery Museum of Fine Arts in Montgomery, Alabama. It opens on April 30th of next year, and it closes July 24th. And then Dissolve is the group exhibition that Kenyatta is in. It opens on February 3rd and it closes May 28th. And that's at a new museum space, the Institute and Museum of California Art, which is here at UC Irvine. You can contact me, you can look that up online for more information either way. And yeah, intersectional all day, right? The lines. And, we learn so much just thinking about mapping this moment that we are surviving right now, the pandemic, but also the crises of anti-Blackness, and tracing the lines of how we intersect, right? How we depend on each other. I am based in Irvine, but my community is out there. Like there's a line between me and Lava. There's a line between me and Karen. There's a lot, and labors of love, thinking about the line as labor. It's just, I'm ready to keep going. But so I took a lot of notes, even on things I already knew, because there was joy in me writing it again. But there are a couple of things that I just want to say in terms of intersectionality between your work. Both of you do an outstanding job helping us meditate on gender and labor and power and beauty. And I want to thank you both for that. One of the phrases, brilliant phrases that Lava dropped today, representations of resistance. And then I also noted, and this is part of the title of your work, Kenyatta, embodied erasure. Come on. I mean, these are 2 more shows. These are books. These are dissertations. Representations of resistance. That's it. Embodied erasure. How do we make ourselves in a big way, ourselves and individually visible? And how do we embody right, the resistance, our purpose for being here, the way that we survive every day. What does it mean to to embody even the pressures of being erased, right? And both of you through your work are materializing and bringing spiritual dimensions that force all of the viewers to just spend time, you know, which is so important when everything is so fast and we're dependent on technology to see each other. So I'll stop there. Those were just some of the things that really moved me, but I have 3 pages of notes and I talk to you both fairly frequently. But I would love for both of you to have the last word. If Lava, if you or Kenyatta, you know, maybe you said enough, that's fine. But anything that you just wanted to share before we end, we would like to hear it.
I'm really speechless right now because Kenyatta brought it. Okay, Kenyatta.
Yeah.
Yes.
Kenyatta, do you want to? She's speechless. She's not talking.
It's just such an honor. And every time I work with this archive, there's always something that happens, some kind of glitch, because I just feel like we're on spirit time, you know? And Lava, in your work, and just even how you talked about the smirks and, you know, the refusal to even put the number around your neck. Like, I refuse to embody this form of erasure. Like, I'm blown away by you two. I'm just so speechless. And every time we get together, like, just spirit has its own time. This ancestral work has its own time. And I don't know, I'm just always so amazed by you. I'm always so honored. I mean, and to be in the show with so many heavy hitters too, and people who are also spirit people who are doing their own conjuring too, and really talking about heavy, deep things from these archives. It's all been an honor. It's been an honor. And thank you all for your beautiful patience and holding space with us during this time, because we need it. We need it. We need Black indexes. We need to talk about this work during this time. And as you said, Bridget, it's a continuum, you know, and that's what I love about your generosity. Like, I don't own, you know, these conceptual ideas. Like, please, more. So I just hope that, you know, what we all witness and unpacked here together can be a catalyst for what we go on to do. Because for me, that's the art. That's why we're doing it. You know, it's not just about these objects that we're making, but about their stories and their energies and what they're bringing forth. The singing, going into the crowd, and then, you know, learning the song so that you can sing it to other people. Zora Neale Hurston said it. So, yeah.
And thank you, Bridget.
No. Thank you. I just, I'm full. It just makes it all, you know, it makes it all worth it. I hope everyone who's here has a chance to see the exhibition. There's an audio component where you can hear Zora Neale Hurston. She's telling a story about a gambling game, a card game that goes nicely with Whitfield's work, but also resonates with everyone's work, you know, that storytelling that you're talking about. So I'm gonna let us just enjoy this and say thank you and send good energy to everybody. I appreciate you all so much. Come see the show. Thank you for your attention and enjoy your weekend. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you.